Welcome to Hannah's Heart.
So Hannah, she's just one of the women who did struggle with infertility in the Bible.
No matter who we are, we can be inspired by the fact that Hannah took her pain to God, and God heard her and was with her.
So when she was praying at the temple, she had been weeping and not eating, and her lips were moving, but her eyes were closed, and the priest was like, "Hey, why are you drunk at the temple?"
It can become an obsession when you want
wanting
a child so deeply.
and desiring that baby and to be a mama. Every holiday, every Mother's Day.
This is not a show that's going to promise you a certain outcome, but this is a show that says, however God answers your cry, we know that He's enough.
Hey, I'm Anne.
And I'm Kendra, and you're listening to Hannah's Heart on American Family Radio. Or maybe you're watching us on one of the many other platforms,
Yeah.
Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all the places. We welcome you to the Hannah's Heart family.
Yes.
If you're new to our show, this is a show that was started by Anne and I because we were struggling with infertility and miscarriage, and it was such a lonely time, and we needed that reminder that God was enough, to cling to Him. And as we've gone on to share our hearts.
4 years later.
Yeah, and then now we talk about adoption, we talk about fostering, we talk about fertility treatments, even sometimes singleness and wishing you could be married and have children. And really when your plan for having a family kind of looks different than what you thought it would be, and it turns out different, how do you lean and trust on God? So that is why we exist, and He's enough.
That's right. And today, our guest that we have on, we have her over the phone today. But she is going to talk about that. And she wrote a book, and it's so inspiring, which, of course, I'm going to let her tell about it. But it will just inspire you to cling to the Lord through infertility and just the questions of why and being left out and bitterness that can come along with that, which I think we've shared many times that we experienced. But then how God can and will answer those prayers better than what you pictured. And so and her book is really inspiring. And her name is Jenn Fowler. Jenn, are you with us?
I'm sure here. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming on today and making time to share your amazing story with our listeners today.
I'm honored to get to do this. I really appreciate y'all inviting me on.
Yeah. Well, I would love for you to just get started. Before we started recording, I was telling you I reread your foreword this morning. I was like, I'm pretty sure we could just do an episode on the foreword. But yeah, if you don't mind, just kind of get into, your infertility struggle. And you were pretty honest in your book about the feelings that you had during that time and how the Lord really just transitioned your heart to get ready for adoption.
Yeah, I really wanted to be raw and open whenever I wrote the book. Just the people that I had encountered who had gone through similar circumstances. The society kind of wants to just say, "Oh, I'm so sorry you went through that." But I'm like, we really need to talk about our real emotions with it. That it was a frustrating time. My husband and I, we met in high school, and we have this wonderful romance story. I love it because we've known each other for so long, and the Lord brought us together at such a young age, and we've just really tried to keep, ourselves pure. We tried to do everything, right that we needed to do as good Christian people. And then when it came time to starting a family, you just kind of automatically assume okay, Lord, let's have a baby. Let's do this. This is what we deserve, right?
Yeah.
But that's really not, God's ultimate plan. And I felt that was what, my kind of next role as a woman was to be a mom.
Right.
And everyone in my family was very fertile. So why wasn't I? And we didn't want to do all the crazy doctors. We were believing and trusting God to deliver, that what we were desiring, a baby. And so it was just very frustrating, when your friends around you are getting pregnant and you keep taking that pregnancy test and you're like, well, okay, maybe next month. It's okay. And it did become a thing that I really did start to kind of idolize, that it wasn't happening. And that was what I was so hopeful for each month, was that was what was going to define me, was this the moment that we were going to find out we were pregnant? Was this the moment? Was this the moment? And the letdown and disappointment after so many years of that not happening. And you do start to say, God, I trust you, but, you're kind of not doing what I want.
Right.
So
Guilty.
what is up with this?
Yeah.
Yes. So it wasn't until, God really had to get my attention that, he wasn't going to deliver a baby for us, that was not in his plan. And I will never forget it was a prayer meeting we were at with our church, and a friend of mine had told me that day she was pregnant. And it just, I was a little not in the right mood to pray when I went to that meeting. But God really got my attention, because he very loudly just whispered to me, if I don't give you a child, will you still praise me? Like, is this the ultimatum for you? Is it this or nothing? Because I think I have something more for you, but is this all that it's going to be for you? And so I had to really accept that this was God saying, hey, this is like, I have something different for you, but I need you to accept that I'm not going to give you a baby. The thing you've been desiring and asking for, my answer is no. What are you going to do about it? So it's kind of hard when God throws it back at you,
It's so hard.
Of course, I want to say, God, I trust you.
Yeah.
And I am, I'm here to praise you, God. Of course, I'm going to, follow what you say. But it was difficult, and it took a couple of more weeks and months for me to really accept that was what God had told me. And then I told my husband, and he's so great. He is just very, very loving and very supportive, and was just automatically like, okay, if that's what God said, then, we'll just pray for whatever he has next. And I admire him for his strength. He's always been right there with me whenever we've gone through hard times. It's kind of annoying too. Like, why do you always have to be so great? Why can't that be me? But, so that was like the main part of our infertility journey, was just the hard struggle of coming to the reality that we were not going to be given the thing that we desired the most, which was the baby.
That is so real and raw, and I love it. And there's so much that's relatable. I love the line that you mentioned of just feeling like God owed you a little bit because you did things right. That was part of my journey as well. And not even, I would never have said that, because that doesn't sound like a spiritual thing. It sounds prideful. But the Lord revealed to me in my heart that I thought it, and that my actions were showing that the reason I was so angsty and like annoyed at God was because I did have this expectation of what he owed me, and having to say, God, you don't owe me anything. You're the savior of the world. I owe my life and my everything to you, and lay that down. I love how you talked about like that moment of just really having to surrender and saying, God said no. God said no to a good thing. And I just wanted to ask you, because when Anne and I were starting this show, there were a lot of ministries or some other ones that existed, or Facebook groups that claimed to be Christian and faith-based, but they were very name it, claim it, I guess, in the mentality of if you have enough faith, you can have this baby and child, and you just have to keep having faith. I'm just curious if you got any of that, or if you struggled with when God said no, knowing he's a miracle working God.
I did. I mean, we did go to, I went to my OB-GYN and told her we were going to try to start having a baby, and the whole production of, okay, well, here's 500,000 ways you can be sure to get pregnant. And they're so weird, right? Temperature and I don't know what, all these things. And I was just like, I don't want to do that. But then people are getting pregnant, and people have been asking me, like, well, have you tried this? Have you tried that? And I was like, well, I guess I should try these things. Oh, my gosh. Like, it became such a production of having the pregnancy, instead of it being a God ordains this thing to happen. So that kind of put me all in a bitter kind of state where then approaching prayer over my womb, for healing, I had several people who felt strongly led to pray over my womb, and they would pray over me, and there was just something inside me that I was like, I just feel sick while they're praying for me.
Wow.
Like, it's not that I didn't want to accept the prayer, but there was just something in me that was like, this is not my will. This is not what needs to happen. And so that was always a very strange thing. I didn't write that in the book because I thought that would be kind of strange to explain just in a book. But it was very hard for me to get prayer over me for that.
Wow.
Certain people I did ask, and certain people I think handled it the right way. And they asked for just prayer for God's blessing over me and Rob. And that was very appreciated versus God heal this wound and bring them a child. And I was like, but what if he doesn't want that, So I was receiving that, but I was also still kind of aware this may not be what God wants, and I just feel strange about it. So, there's just so many people who have different opinions on it, and, but, to really have someone who's going through infertility, God has closed their womb for whatever reason that he desires, for people to just kind of have a different heart to say, hey, that means God has something great, coming, or, hey, I'm sorry that you're going through this. And that really does, it really does suck. There's no way to say it.
Right.
It's really not cool, but, let's pray for the blessings that God is going to, produce through you, whatever it may be.
That's so important and powerful, just to pray right when you're dealing with infertility, and whether it's over you or somebody else's body. And of course, I know all of us believe that God is a miracle working God, and we've heard miracle after miracle on this show of times that God has healed a womb. And I don't think it's wrong to ask that or to even pray that over somebody and ask God to do that, but always while holding in your hand, God, not my will, but your will be done. And when Jesus taught his disciples how to pray, he said, you look at in the Lord's Prayer, it's putting it in God's will first. And then, Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, when he's praying, this one blows my, he's like, God, if it's possible, take this cup from me. I don't want to do this, but not my will, but your will.
Right.
And I think it's okay to say, God, I don't want to have to drink from the cup of infertility and having to move to whatever's next, but not my will, but your will be done. And to pray with that, Lord, I believe you can heal. I ask you to heal, but if you don't, whatever your will is for me, I know and I trust you.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the main thing. Yeah, God, whatever it is your will, I know you can do this. But if you don't, I know it's your will. That is a very hard prayer to pray.
It is. It's a scary thing because you're like, I'm finally releasing control. And you mentioned that in your book, that it was something you literally didn't have control over. And I think that's something that slaps all of us girls in the face when this does happen, because you just dream of having that family that you've always pictured. And then it's like, hold on, I literally can't do anything about this. Because even no matter for fertility treatments or not, sometimes adoptions or not, like that is literally out of your control. How did you cross that line of like, okay, I'm surrendering this control? And we do get to the point of adoption. So what did that look like for you?
I mean, I'm very much a control freak. So, that was very hard for me. But I'll say once you are able to say that prayer that you mentioned, Kendra, just God, I know you can do it, but it's your will, then just the trust that you can have with God. And just, I feel like your faith kind of takes a boost, so you can really say, okay, well, I'm accepting now of whatever's going to happen. And so your eyes get more open to just other things that you normally wouldn't have your eyes open to. I had never thought of adoption ever. I have a cousin who's adopted. I have a couple of other family members who had adopted, and I just thought, that's so cool. But it just never was something that kind of crossed my mind until I surrendered completely. And then God was just like, let me just throw this word everywhere. everywhere that I looked. Where on Facebook, I think I was listening to a random talk show one time. I don't ever do that, but it was on, and they were talking about adoption, and I was just like, okay, well, I'm sure hearing this word a lot. So I started to really pray about it, and I said, God, if this is something you need me to pay attention to, I need you to make it a little more clear. Because, of course, we doubt and we need a little more assurance from God, right? Like he's putting it in my path, but is this really from you, God? So I prayed for that, but I never mentioned it to my husband. And so one day we're driving, and I just said to him, Rob, I need to talk to you about something. And he looks at me and he says, if you're going to ask me if we want to adopt, then my answer is yes.
Oh, wow.
What?
I love it. Jill.
Such
Like,
a neat
where did that come
story.
from?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which that just reassures your heart, like,
Yeah.
okay, it's not just me.
Right.
who's
God
going
was
through
speaking
the
to you
infertility.
both. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not just my desire. I know my husband had desire to be a father.
Right.
And I felt bad, of course, that I couldn't give him a child that was going to look like us. But, you just don't think about the guy's reaction or their journey. And now I've just been thinking of it more when writing this book. I keep telling my husband he needs to write an addendum. That's his point of view, and he wants to.
I like
That's such a cool idea.
Yeah, because I don't think the guys get a lot of spotlight with it.
Right.
But he was praying so much, and I know that he has such a genuine heart that God was really getting his attention too with adoption, because he knew y'all need to be on the same page, and this is what I have for you, this journey. So I really appreciate it. It was just so funny in that car. We were like, I don't know what to do from here now, but I guess we're talking about adoption. So let's dive in 100%. Let's do it. So we had some friends that knew a couple of different people who had adopted, and this one woman, she had started an adoption agency, and so we met with her, and it was just great because she got to talk to us about the different types of adoption, because, you just don't think about all the different ways. You just kind of think, oh, you adopt a baby, or you can foster and then adopt that way. But there's a lot of different other ways, international, yes, with a family member, or like what we ended up choosing to do, which was adopting straight from foster care without having to become a foster family. And that was just a real bit appeal to us. I don't know why, but I do know why. Of course, it was God.
Right.
I didn't even know you could do that.
When I was reading that in your book, I don't know if I knew that was an option. And so it makes me wonder if it is an option in Mississippi.
Yeah. How does that work?
So I know that there are different state rules, of course, with all of that. And it requires, a certain organization that, they really do have to fight for you pretty good. But yeah, you just, we got aligned with our adoption agency. Of course, we fill out the application and everything. And they are looking at the pool of children who are in foster care that are considered legal and free for adoption. I hate that term because kids are not property to be legal and free, but it means the parental rights have been terminated, and they're just waiting.
Now, we've had friends to do this, and they're in Arkansas. But that is how that works. But I don't think that it works this way in Mississippi. I don't think that this is an option for us.
I'm going to have to look into that. It would be great. I know that there's some different laws that have been recently passed or are trying to get passed to make the process for adoption easier and to kind of change like the wait time for getting a child's profile, for getting information. I know that there's some things trying to run through the laws right now for that. So hopefully this can gain more momentum, because it's really a cool thing. And I give respect to all the foster families. There was a reason we were not called to foster. I think the heartache of not having a baby and then when we were talking about the different types of adoption, there was just something in both of my husband and I where we said the desire to have an infant is not there anymore. We don't feel like we have to have a baby because now we know all of the kids that are waiting and, you know, they get looked over.
That's right.
Because they're older and not an infant. So that was so touching to us, and we just could not let that go, that we said that we need to adopt from foster care however we can. But we looked at the rules to be a foster family, and I said, I just don't know if I could get attached to a kid and give them back, being that I don't have a kid yet.
Right.
You know, being my first child, I just know I would get so attached that would be hard to give them back to a family, which would be for a great reason that they would leave.
Yeah.
So that kind of led us down to hearing about the They Wait program, which is what it's called for where we're at. And it's just, the kids waiting. They are older. I believe, now I know that there's a lot of different rules in different states. For the most part in Texas, they're going to be at least 2. That's the minimum for when their parental rights would be terminated. But it's kind of hard to find those younger ones because they get snatched up from foster families. So, you know, and there's just they can be any age. So
now, your kiddos, they were how old?
They were 6 and 8 when we adopted them. Our daughter was 6 and our son was 8. So we had set our age limit as 7. We had said we're going to try to get 2 kids under the age of 7 or 7 and under. And we knew we at least wanted one to be a boy, because I don't know if we could have had both girls. That was just we felt like at least one is a boy, that we didn't care about the other one. But our son has just turned 8 when they found their profile.
Wow.
And so they called us and said, will you accept it? And we're like, yeah, of course. Like, why would we not consider that? And so, so that was really cool to accept doing the adoption. And from the time that actually we signed the paperwork for our organization to the time that the kids walked into our front door was exactly 9 months.
Wow.
So I had a pregnancy.
Wow.
You did. You had time to prepare your heart. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And wasn't it right around Christmas time?
It was.
Oh, I love that.
It was before Christmas.
Oh, to have babies, kids in your home.
Fun, terrifying.
Yes, yes.
My word.
This last weekend, in November 8th was the day that we first met the kids. For the very first time that we pulled up and saw their faces, and we knew who they were, but they didn't know who we were. So that's a very fun memory for us to remember. But then it was December 19th when they came to live with us.
Wow. Okay, we already somehow don't have a whole lot of time, but could you tell us the cute story of your first memory with them? And you explained, you know, a lot of times, most times when mamas meet their baby, they are meeting them by laying them on their chest and hear their first cry. But you got a sweet little prize that they made for you. Do you mind telling us about that real quick?
Yes, I love this story. We were terrified to go up there and meet them, but we were ready. We met them at a social service office. They were with their foster family, and they actually were not living in the same foster home at the time. So they had 2 separate families that brought them to this office, and we met there. And in the lobby, again, we knew who the kids were because we knew their pictures. They didn't know who we were. But we heard our daughter ask her foster mom for something to eat. And so my husband ran to the snack machine. He's like, I'll buy you whatever you want. And so he bought them hot Cheetos and Coke because that's what she asked for. And we're not going to question it at 6 because I'm not your parent yet. So there you go. And so they take that into the room where we're kind of getting a briefing of how this looks, what the rules are, what we need to do. And the kids are in the corner. They had some paper and markers, things like that, and they're just crafting away. One point when I'm talking to the social workers that were there and the foster families, our daughter comes up and she's measuring my head with this piece of paper. And then she goes over and they're like making these things, and then they bring it over to us, and they put these crowns on our head. They had made us paper crowns out of the paper.
With the hot Cheetos.
And mine had hot Cheetos attached to it.
So
I
cute.
still cherish that to this day.
I love that story. And somehow, you guys, we are already to the
Out of
end
time.
of the show.
Real quick, where can we find your book?
It's available on Amazon. It's called How Can I Not by
We'll
Jenn
put that in
Fowler.
the show notes.
We will.
And
Yes.
it is also available on the Nook on Barnes & Noble.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much, Jenn, for coming on. And thank you guys for listening to Hannah's Heart. We'll
Thanks,
see you next
ladies.
week.